Yesterday we looked at air pollution, right? So we studied what exactly is pollution, what are the different types of pollutants. If you remember, we also looked at degradable, slowly degradable, and persistent pollutants. Also, with that, we also looked at point and non-point sources of pollution, right? So again, like I told you, you can expect questions over these topics exam. Right? Pollution, first one we already started. Pollution, I think we Okay, can you hear me now? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
My network is fluctuating today, and so I've changed the hotspot. Let's see if this works. There is no electricity actually today here. All right. Yes, so we were talking about air pollution. I'll just share the screen again. Yeah, so we were talking about primary pollutants and secondary pollutants. Uh, primary pollutants were the ones who are singularly responsible. They are directly causing air pollution. Secondary pollutants are the ones that are formed by the reaction of two or more primary pollutants, right? So, for example, smog, which means smoke plus fog. So, pan, smog, ozone, these are examples of secondary pollutants, whereas primary pollutants are carbon dioxide, all the nitrogen sulfur compounds, lead, right? So we saw how lead is also one of the major components of vehicular emissions. Leaded petrol in the primary source of airborne lead emissions in Indian cities. And therefore, air pollution has become a very big problem. If you remember, we also saw about the effects of air pollution, very important, on animal life, on plant life. Okay. And we looked at some control measures also for how air pollution can be, what are some solutions at the industrial level. So yesterday I had asked you to tell me a few things about uh, air pollution. So we have to discuss about the solutions to air pollution. So someone quickly just tell me what can be, so you can write it in the chat box also, what can be done. We have to look at what can be done at the local, at the individual level, at the local level, at the national level, and at the international level. Okay, so the solutions to air pollution. On an individual level, what do you think you can do? Anyone, you can speak on the mic, or you can also write it in the chat box. What do you think? What are some solutions to air pollution? Yes, Girish, Shivai, Maitreyi.
Sewage disposal properly you should do at individual level.
Okay. Anything else? How can you reduce air pollution? What are some solutions to it? Okay, Ketki is saying use public transport instead of private vehicles. Okay. Any other solution at the individual level? Or maybe we can put public transport at the local level.
Electric bikes are used.
Yes, very good, Neha. So the use of electric bikes, very good. I think recently now they've become very common, right? At least in Pune city, you can see many of the people are using electric bikes. Do they have a license plate? Do you need a license to drive them? I don't remember the updated rules. Okay, use of fans instead of air conditioners. Okay, yes. Anything else on a personal level? What can you do? Yes, what about the others? Other students also avoid using firecrackers. Okay. Avoid the use of firecrackers. reduce the use wherever possible. You try to minimize the use of firecrackers. Anyone else? Okay, I think this is good at the individual level. How about use of bicycles? The use of bicycles also. Also, you know, if you have to go for any short distances, then you should walk or you can bicycle, right? Instead of taking your two-wheeler out. Especially people who live near the college, right? Students who live in PGs and all. If you're living close to the college, you might as well walk to college, right? We also now have the metro. Okay, fine. Now moving to the local level, as a locality, as a group together, what can you do? Now think of the local level. Tell me some initiative that can be done at the local level. What comes to your mind? Can we put public transport, Ketaki, in the local level? Yes, other students. What can you do at a local level? Yes, stop farmers from burning crops, correct, and burning their fields. So especially in Punjab, Haryana, you know that they burn their paddy field. So that is one of the major reasons why Delhi NCR becomes so heavily polluted. I think it's the topmost polluted place in our country, right? It's because it is surrounded by these agricultural states, Haryana, Punjab, where they go and actually burn their farms, right? They burn the paddy field. So it causes heavy smoke, and it reduces the visibility of the whole area. Plus, you know, it is winter season. So in winter season, the air settles to the bottom, right? So therefore, in summer season, you have the advantage that the air will heat up and the pollutants will also move to a higher elevation. But in summer season, in winter season, that option is also not there. Okay, now national level. Okay, come on, quickly tell me a few of your ideas. What can you do at a national level? So what can countries do to reduce their carbon footprint, to reduce their air pollution? Yes, others. Chaitanya, Anushka, where are these other students? Tanvi, Saili, Shardul, Shreya, Shibai, Namrata. What can countries do? Can they evolve some policies? What can they do at the national level? Reduction of industrial effluents or garbage dumping in river water. Yes, so this we can put as a national thing because there should be national, I mean, industries are present everywhere, right? Are present all over the country. So this, let's put it in the national level. So basically we have the CPCB, Central Pollution Control Board, which has evolved to tackle the laws, right? So we have an Air Prevention and Control Act, Water Pollution Prevention and Control Act. So these acts, who is responsible to act on these acts? It is the Pollution Control Board. So of course, in the next units, we will be studying these laws in a bit detail. So there you will be reminded that CPCB has the authority to actually go to industries, and they can ask the industry to show their emission data. So they can say, oh, why have you not put a controller? Why have you not put a gravitational chamber? Why have you not put filters to your industries, to your machines? Why are you putting out waste into the river? Yeah, so evolving national policies is the and actually going and checking how it is on field is with the CPCB, right? So it has been evolved on a national level to tackle these problems of different types of pollution. Then on a national scale, again, so when I was studying in Singapore, what I have seen, in Singapore, what they do is they have there are peak travel times, right? Like for example, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Because offices are over by that time, right? So there is a lot of peak travel time. So what they have done is they have identified some main roads in the city, and if you travel from that road from 6 to 8 p.m., then you will be fined, right? So they take a fine from you if you want to travel on those roads. So eventually, they don't take a fine if you are traveling from the bus, but if you are traveling by your own car, then they will take a fine from you, right? And therefore they have regulated traffic in peak times. And once you regulate traffic, then you know that you are also regulating carbon emissions, right? So of course, there are different countries who have evolved different policies. You must have heard of the odd even rule, right, which they had started in Delhi. So again, you can study the positive and the negatives of that policy, but different countries come up with different solutions, right? Like I just told you the example of Singapore. In Delhi, they had started the case of odd and even rule, right? You must have heard of it. So on a national level, on a state level, it's very, very vital that some innovative thing, something that is particular to that culture, that travel time is very important. Like for example, again in Pune and in like Mumbai, in big cities, right? Again, Bangalore, Chennai, of course Delhi, huge travel takes place during 6 to 8 p.m. So that time can be regulated. Whereas in the other cities, you can think of more and more carpooling. You can think of more and more public transport. So air pollution must be controlled in some niche way, right? There cannot be one big solution, but on a national scale, yes, carpooling, public transport, electric vehicles, battery operated vehicles, then use of biodiesel, right? So I'm writing it in the chat box. So biofuel. So you must have heard of bioethanol and biodiesel, right? So it is again what your petrol that you get in the petrol pumps, around 5% of the petrol contains biofuel. So in India, we have already started blending biofuels, bioethanol in our petrol, right? Because the source is very good, it's eco-friendly, it's not going to release a lot of carbon emissions as compared to petrol. So therefore, we are trying to increase the blending of bioethanol. I think 10% is allowed, but it has to be increased to at least 20%, right? So therefore, we need to think of, such innovative solutions. On an international scale, what you can do is sharing of best practices, right? I have written it in the chat box. Sharing of best practices. So every year, the countries, they meet at UN. It is called as UNFCCC. So the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Here the countries, they meet and they think about ways and means to tackle sustainable development, right? So we studied about sustainable development in our earlier lectures. It talks about how life on land, life below water, sustainable cities, education, poverty, all of this is affecting the environment. And therefore, how can we move towards a more resilient society, right? So internationally, what you can do is countries can present their best practices, right? And if it suits your country, then you can also adopt it and apply it to your own country, right? So therefore, this is the case of air pollution, is that we can learn from each other. We can learn what best practices have worked for each other, right? I think someone already spoke about using less and less, using fans instead of air conditioner, so using less energy. One of the other advantages as a cultural practice in India is, again in summer, we use these matkas, right? So we use matkas to keep water. So that also keeps the water naturally cool. Then there is less dependence on the refrigerator because you know that it releases again greenhouse gases, CFCs, into the atmosphere, which is again causing air pollution and global warming, right? So there are some cultural practices of countries which must also be shared with the other countries. Therefore, sharing best practices at the international level, at the level of the UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, all of this is going to go a long way into helping the cause of air pollution. Is that clear? Any other point that you want to mention about the solutions to air pollution? So we have I think we have covered it in detail about personal level, local level, national level, and international level. Any other point that you want to mention? Yes, you can write it in the chat box. Any other point that is left? Yes, recycle and reuse. Yes, the bottom line for every type of pollution. Recycling and reusing, the bottom line for everything. That is correct. Very good. Yes. So here we complete our topic of air pollution. Okay. Now let's look at water pollution. Water pollution. I'm just sharing the screen. In water pollution, there is groundwater, very important. There is also surface water. And then there is also ocean water, right? So when we are studying groundwater, we have to look at three things: surface water, groundwater, and ocean water. Groundwater, surface groundwater, very simple, you know that it has to be recharged during every monsoon. Surface water contains all your lakes, ponds, rivers, right? And your ocean water, again very, very important, because there is huge amount of travel, right, that takes place. A lot of ships pass through the oceans and they are regularly polluting our oceans. The main problem with oceans is again a lot of plastic, which gets dumped into the oceans. So again, whenever we talk of water pollution, remember there are three types of water pollution: surface water pollution, groundwater pollution, and ocean water pollution. Okay, so let's quickly just study the case of ocean pollution, which is your marine pollution. So where they talk about what is the case of marine litter, right? So um, the problem of marine litter is such that even from the remote areas all across the ocean's world, litter is found, right? Which is your garbage. And this garbage, it continues to accumulate inside the oceans, and it causes a huge amount of impact economically, environmentally, and also on aquatic health. Of course, on human health, it does cause problems, but also on the aquatic life, right? So, where does this litter come from for marine pollution? Again, you know that there is a waste which gets released from the river banks or from the coast. If there are some industries which are near the oceans, very big problem today again is tourism, because you know that the recreational use of coasts for tourism activity, people just go to the beach and they dump a lot of plastic, right? And then they forget about it, right? So therefore, whenever, I mean now, especially when holidays start, people go to, Alibag, right? And Goa and all these places. You must have seen how they litter the beach with a lot of plastic waste. So therefore, that is also a big concern for marine litter. Of course, the littering of beaches, then fishing activity, right? So fishing activity, then ship travel, because ships travel a great distance in the ocean. They also release a lot of oil. So there is oil leakage into the ocean water, which kills the aquatic birds, which kills the fishes also. So therefore, all of this actually, it can cause a lot of economic losses, uh, and the environmental cost of this is again even huge, right? So therefore, um, it is of a huge concern. So we will quickly see in the short documentary what it is. Then there is something called as microplastics, which we will also study in that, and we will try to think of the causes of marine pollution. Okay, I'm just sharing the screen. Okay, is it visible to everyone?
From space, our ocean appears pristine clean. Unfortunately, it's not. A new study found that coastal border countries produced 2.5 billion metric tons of solid waste in the year 2010. 275 million metric tons was plastic, the most abundant type of marine litter. Because of poorly controlled waste sites, illegal dumping, and unsustainable waste from population centres, tourism, industrial and agricultural activities, an estimated 8 million metric tons of plastic waste enter the oceans. discarded road, boats and galley waste, and sewage from fishing, merchant shipping, oil rigs, cruise ships, and others are further. Large amounts of land-based and sea-based rubbish sinks to the ocean floor. The ocean circulation transports floating plastic around the globe over 50 years. Every part of the ocean examined so far has revealed its presence. Plastics in the ocean degrade into smaller pieces through the effects of sunlight, oxidation, and the abrasion of waves and currents, often to the point where no longer visible and they die. Marine organisms from zooplankton to fish consume these so-called microplastics taken up for food. However, microplastics are not only the result of deterioration of larger plastic fragments. Microplastics are also purposefully manufactured to be of microscopic size to act as scrubs and abrasive agents in personal care products. They are also created when fibers from synthetic textiles are released when washed and transported by the washing machine to the sewer. Because of their size, fine microplastics is not widely accepted to be thrown out in wastewater treatment plants, ending up in the ocean and other waterways. Chemicals used in plastic manufacturing also make way to the sea through poor management of operations or accidental faults during transport. Because of litter, life in the ocean is at risk. The physical effects of entanglement or ingestion of large plastic items like creatures and seabirds are relatively unknown. Plastic contains chemicals used in the manufacturing process. They also act as sponges, absorbing pollutants dumped in the ocean. Although additional research is still needed to determine the net effect of plastics may be in either transferring existing pollutants or reducing the bioavailability. Consumption of plastic and also microplastics by marine organisms may hold persistent bioaccumulative and toxic substances deep into the future. Concerning as if it may even affect us. At present, most scientists agree that it is not feasible to clean up these plastics in the oceans, and efforts must be focused on tackling the problem at source. It is also too big of a problem for any one country, position or agency to address them. The Global Partnership on Marine is a voluntary open multi-stakeholder partnership aimed to protect human health, global environment through protection and management of marine litter. It works as a coordinated body to increase collaboration and awareness of the impact of EVS to various levels of society. Identify and address knowledge gaps related to marine technology. Enhance knowledge of best practices through transformation around the world. Coordinate global and regional networks and improve teaching among actors. Partnership encourages behaviors and actions to reduce consumers seek to reduce the amount of generated waste. Reuse is then one of the most possible. Recycle whatever can't be reused anymore to give it more life. Finally, recover energy from local producers and designers are urged to rethink and redesign so that, for example, products manufactured result in less waste by using alternative materials have longer lifespan and hold value for longer. Through innovation, technological developments, sustainable design of products, and changing habits that lead to better waste management, ocean can be a strong global partnership will amplify these efforts to help safeguard one of the planet's most valuable resources for future generations.
So this is the United Nations environmental program, right? So the United Nations, the UNEP is again very famous for the activities that it takes place that it conducts for environmental conservation, right? So this video that I showed to you. It's a very official United Nations video, right? They have researched about it, and thereby they have made this extremely useful video, right? So you know that any plastic that you dump, it what happens? Fish think that it is their food, and they consume that small pieces of plastic, and that causes their stomach to, that causes basically suffocation. That also causes fish to die, because their intestines, their stomach, it becomes very hard, right? They are unable to digest it. So it causes a lot of death of aquatic fishes, even birds, right? Wetland birds. So plastic litter inside the oceans is a huge concern. It's a big problem for our economy, and therefore one of the major concerns about ocean pollution, right? So anywhere you dump anywhere you dump plastic, is going to be of a big problem. Then United Nations has started this program called as Global Program for Action of the Protection of Marine Environment, right? So we need to, we need to be aware of such programs. These are some very important organizations. They introduce us to different issues. They show us how we can play a role in solving this problem, right? And therefore, it basically encourages you, it makes you environmentally conscious, and people start wondering if you should actually start caring more for our oceans. Because what happens is we are not directly seeing oceans every day, so maybe it does not come to our notice as much as the air pollution comes to our notice, right? So therefore, this is where I first start with. Always, whenever I start with water pollution, I start with ocean pollution, because it needs great amount of awareness. Okay, so for tomorrow's, we are meeting on Sunday now. On Sunday, we will complete this topic of pollution. We will finish with groundwater and groundwater pollution and surface water pollution, and we will also try to study soil pollution. Okay, so any questions? Any questions regarding today's lecture?
No, ma'am.
Okay, fine. So I'll just give you the link for the attendance. So please save the link. It's the same link. So just 5 minutes for your attendance, and then we will meet next class, which is on Sunday.